"You're useless, Emma. Just stand there and smile." My mom snapped at dinner, guests laughing softly. Then someone unexpected stood up. "My name is Emma Carter. I'm 34 years old, and I work as an administrative assistant at a small legal office. Not glamorous, not impressive. At least, that's what my family always made sure I knew. I was the older one, the quiet one, the dependable one who handled things in the background while my younger sister took center stage. For years, I paid bills without being asked, sent money without being thanked, and showed up without being celebrated. They painted me as someone who never achieved anything big. They told everyone I was the disappointment. But I had something they never expected. I had receipts. Every single one. If your own family has ever made you feel small, hit subscribe. Share your story below. I'm listening. And click hype so others who've lived this can feel seen too. The dinner was a formal one. Mom had invited extended relatives and a few of her high-status friends. The table looked beautiful. The smell of roasted garlic and fresh bread filled the room, and candles flickered on the white tablecloth. It should have been a warm evening. It wasn't. Mom started going around the table, proudly introducing my younger sister, talking about her career, her salary, her apartment. I stood near the kitchen, quiet. When I stepped in to help serve the food, Mom snapped at me in front of everyone. "Don't mess this up like everything else you do." A few guests laughed nervously. My sister smirked. "She's always been like this," she added, like I wasn't standing right there. I kept my face still. Then Mom turned to the table and said, "She's still working a basic job at 34? Can you believe it?" All eyes landed on me. My face burned. I couldn't move. And then, from the far end of the room, a well-dressed older man slowly stood up. He looked directly at me. "Emma Carter?" he said. He walked toward me and held out a sealed envelope. The room went completely silent. Mom's expression shifted. She looked confused and just slightly afraid. Mom moved first. "Who are you? This is a private dinner." Her voice was sharp, controlled. The man didn't flinch. He simply said Emma should open the envelope. My sister laughed from her chair. Probably another bill she forgot to pay. The table chuckled. I felt heat rise in my chest. Mom stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. "Don't embarrass us further tonight." She reached for the envelope. I pulled it back. Something had shifted inside me. I don't know how to explain it, but standing in that room, holding that envelope, I felt something click. The man's eyes were calm. He wasn't nervous, he wasn't performing, he was certain. I thought about all the mornings I had quietly transferred money, all the times I had covered costs nobody acknowledged, all the moments I had stayed silent because I thought silence was the price of keeping the peace. Mom turned back to the guests with a tight smile. "She's financially dependent on us, always has been." Whispers moved around the table. My sister nodded along, but I noticed something then. The guests weren't laughing anymore. They were watching. I looked at the envelope in my hands, then looked at my mother. "I think I'll open it," I said. What they didn't know was that I had kept everything, every receipt, every bank transfer record, every message asking me to send money. Late at night, after long shifts at the office, I had organized years of documentation into files on my home computer. I never told anyone. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning for the moment I might need to protect myself. Working at a legal office teaches you things. You learn what documentation looks like. You learn what evidence means. You learn that the truth only helps you if you can prove it, and I had been proving it, quietly, for years. The envelope in my hands was connected to something much larger than a dinner party. This moment was not random, and that man standing in my mother's dining room had not simply wandered in. He introduced himself as a representative of an estate lawyer, a man who had once worked with my late grandfather. That lawyer had been watching. Over the years, he had quietly reviewed financial records and family patterns. He had noticed something that my family had hoped no one would ever notice. My grandfather had left a conditional inheritance, and the conditions were tied directly to truth and financial accountability within the family. The stranger had been authorized to make contact after a legal review was triggered, partly through workplace filings I had submitted without knowing their significance. My family started talking over each other. Mom said, "This is ridiculous. We've done everything for her." My sister rolled her eyes. "This is a stunt." The stranger didn't raise his voice. He simply said that everything would become clear once the envelope was opened. The guests had gone completely still. The only sound was the quiet hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. My family still believed they could talk their way out of this. They were wrong. I opened the envelope. Inside were official legal documents and a detailed financial summary. It showed line by line, transfer by transfer, that I had been financially supporting this household for years, not borrowing, supporting. The funds had covered household bills. They had covered expenses tied directly to my sister's lifestyle. I looked at my mother. "You told everyone I was a burden?" She stammered. She said the numbers were out of context. The man calmly explained that the documents had been prepared for a formal legal claim and an inheritance review. My grandfather's conditional bequest was now at risk for certain members of the family, based on the documented pattern of financial misrepresentation. My sister stood up. "That's not fair." The stranger set down a second document. She sat back down. Mom's voice had lost its authority. She looked smaller somehow. I looked around the table at the guests staring back at me. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. "I stayed quiet," I said, "because I thought family meant loyalty, not humiliation." Nobody laughed. Nobody smirked. For the first time in that house, I was the one standing tall. I left the dinner that night without asking for forgiveness or permission. The family was left in that room embarrassed, facing questions they couldn't answer. Things shifted permanently after that evening. The closeness that had actually been control simply fell away. I didn't miss it. I felt lighter walking to my car than I had in years. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for the moment the truth finally speaks for itself. I was one of them, and when that moment came, I didn't have to say much at all. They called me useless for years, but the truth didn't need my voice. It just needed its moment. If your family ever made you feel like a burden while quietly hiding the truth, you are not alone. Share your story below. Subscribe to connect with others who've lived this. Click hype to help this story reach someone who needs it today. Your story has power. If you felt something watching mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give helps someone else feel less alone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.